Welcome to the Pain Relief Path podcast, where I dive into the vast world of chronic pain with the occasional help from knowledgeable guests from diverse disciplines that impact your chronic pain. I am your host, Dr. Pan Zhang, physical therapist turned chronic pain coach. I'm here to educate, empower, and encourage you to find your path to a pain-free life. Thank you for listening. Enjoy. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Pain Relief Path. My name is Dr. Pan Zhang, and I have a very special guest today. I'm super excited, and her name is Jenni Sills, and she is a nutrition coach. I'm not going to lie, I asked her to come on because I am really, really curious about nutrition. I even tell people, listen, the nutrition stuff you get from me is going to be really basic. So I'm really excited to have you on today, Jenni.
I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So Jenni is, like I said, a nutrition coach, and she helps busy women specifically figure out how to build health into their already chaotic schedules, which I love. And you use personalized nutrition plans and then a comprehensive health analysis, which includes factors such as like mindset, environment, and stress. And the best part is you're not dieting or working out 7 days a week. So that is right up my alley.
It connects with a lot of people. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
All have busy lives. So that's the number one thing I hear. So it's definitely, I got you covered.
Perfect. So how did you fall into doing nutrition and nutrition coaching?
So, my gosh, I would say about a decade ago, I hate to date myself, but about a decade ago, I started to have just a lot of severe reactions to food. And I had already cut out dairy and gluten, and I was still having reactions. And so I had to kind of go on my own journey, and I saw a naturopathic doctor, got a lot of testing done, and started building in a lot of the practices that I teach people. But now now what I teach people is more of like how to not get to the point that I was at, for sure. But it just kind of led to this natural curiosity to learn more. Mm-hmm. I was a teacher by degree, so I taught kindergarten through 8th grade. So it's kind of morphed into like wanting to educate or help people with the things that I have learned that have made my life so much more manageable. I also got certified as a personal trainer. So like health and fitness all go together. So I'd have a lot of clients telling me like, hey, same as you, like, what do I do with nutrition? And I was not like legally allowed to give them nutrition plans or things like that. So it was like, okay, I can give basic advice, but if I want to take it to that next level and really help people, because a lot of people will figure out the gym aspect or the fitness aspect, but then you would see like, well, it's like I'm working out so I can eat more, or, maybe in their 20s, they're like not seeing those problems. And as women get into their, 30s, it's like, what just happened? I turned 30 and my body's not responding the same way. And now I'm almost 40 and it's like, whoa, my body's not responding the same way. So I wanted to be able to help more with that.
Yeah, everything you said just completely resonated with me. In my 20s, I was like, I will go run so I can eat this whole cake in one sitting kind of person. And now I'm like, I turned 35 this year and I just had a baby. So my body is completely different. So now like, if I like look at a piece of cake, it like is on my face.
Well, you just have that hormone cocktail running through your body after having a baby. So it's very different. And so I do work with a lot of women who are in in different transitional, phases of life, who are kind of going, this used to work and now it doesn't. Help.
Yeah. Yes. And I think we all need a little bit of help with that. And also just doing it in a healthy way, so one of the things I love about your approach is that it's super, super holistic, meaning that you address the person's whole body, their whole life. So you, like I said, like your mission statement you address things like mindset, environment, and stress. How do you see those things affecting a nutrition plan that you provide somebody?
So, I just finished the course that I'm creating that should be out by the time you listen to this was a workshop that I got to talk with people And the questions that kept coming up were, some of them were like, I kind of am already doing a lot of these nutrition things. And the number one issue that came up was sleep. My certification that I got, actually, they're creating a whole course on coaching sleep habits, because it is one of the biggest drivers in people's roadblocks for seeing change in their goals, whether it's weight loss or energy or brain fog. So whether they have their nutrition kind of figured out, or they have the general idea of what to do, or they're like, I have no clue where to start, the issues that always come up are sleep, stress levels, and mindset. I resonate with being an all or nothing kind of girl. Like in everything I do, I'm going to like go hard. I work hard and I play hard. And so it's teaching people that if we want a balanced lifestyle, like life simply balanced, then we have to approach things and look at the whole picture, right? We can't just look at what's in one frame. It's this continual like video essentially that's going. And we have to figure out, okay, what are all the aspects that contribute to it? So yeah, I help people understand, like one of the things we talked about in the workshop was different disruptors that come up, whether it's chemicals in our products that we're not even aware of, air quality, water quality are things. And then even feminine hygiene products, like they have chemical disruptors. So there's so many different aspects, and I do not recommend everyone does everything at once. I've been working on these things for a decade. So now all of these things that I recommend are things that I've been doing, but I help people start with one where it's the easiest access point. So they have a win, and then they can add on, new things. But they will eventually find that they start to build this toolkit. But yeah, most people say like, I know what to do, but I'm just not doing it. And I say, okay, let's understand why that is. Is it a mindset issue? Is it your body's so fatigued, you don't have the energy or like the willpower, even care because you're so tired. Right. So I help people understand that it's not just, if I just ate better, which yes, a lot of people could eat better, but there's so much more. There's so much more.
I agree completely. And with that holistic approach, it's like, if you go see a nutritionist at like a doctor's office or something like that, or nutritionists that are associated with big hospital systems and things like that, that's all they focus on is just, they give you a FODMAP handout, basically, or diabetes, like these are the foods you can eat, these are the foods you cannot eat handout. And then what I get is people come back to me and they're like, what do I do with this? Like, I can't afford any of these foods. I don't like half of them. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? So getting that like 50,000 foot view of their life and being like, okay, let's figure out how to maybe incorporate just one thing at a time, or whatever, like you said, the lowest hanging fruit, them some success.
Right. Absolutely. And I mean, a lot of people, you said they do still work out so they can eat, and that is okay every once in a while. Right. But if that's the go-to practice every single time, then we're looking at, well, what does your ideal health look like? What does that mean to you? And so we're just unpacking a lot of things that help them to see really maybe what's going on up here, right? To help them see the results they're looking for. So,
yeah. And I mean, I've had patients and clients with chronic pain who work out religiously, like they are, and that's part of the problem almost.
Yeah.
They work out so much and they have this pain that they're just cranking through and pushing through. And then I don't know, when I talk to them about their diet, I'm just like, I don't think you're eating enough. Like, and that's a huge deal for especially women who work out. Like you have to fuel your body to be able to keep performing.
Absolutely. That's one of the biggest things as women. I don't know where it was, but they were told a 1,200 calorie diet. No, like I have probably on average around 1,900 to 2,000 calories a day. And I'm a very fit person. And then the other aspect of it is people are overtraining. I was a head coach at a specific gym. I won't say the name, and it's a great workout, but spikes your cortisol levels up. And if you are already in a very high stressful state of life, your body never knows to come down from that. And so your body then doesn't know how to digest as well. And it's like back when cavemen, right? The fight or flight, that cortisol was there so that if there was real danger, they would spring into action. And so when we don't address things like excess exercise, chronic pain, all of these different components, or eating not eating enough, then our body just goes into this storage mode. And then when we're like, well, I'm at a plateau. I haven't been able to lose this weight or this belly fat. Well, you're either under eating, you're working out too hard, you're not resting enough. And then those are the hard things they have to work on. Those aren't the lowest hanging fruit. Those are the bigger things that we're going to get to eventually, but we get there. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are like the big lifestyle changes.
Absolutely. I was definitely, when my husband was telling me about maybe you should add some yoga, or walking is one of the best belly fat burning exercises out there. It's so underrated. And he's like, maybe, and I was like, no, I love my workouts. And so having to shift the type of workout style I do, instantly saw results. It was like, okay, he was right.
Yeah. It sucks when that happens.
I know, right? Well, he is a trainer too. So I was like, okay, he knows what he's talking about. Yeah.
Gotcha. So you specialize specifically in helping women with their nutrition. What kind of unique challenges have you found that really present themselves to women when it comes to nutrition and health and finding balance?
We just went over it, mindset and habits, because a lot of women just want that quick fix. I want to do it all right now. I want results in 30 days. And it's, well, why? If it took you this many years to get where you're at with the problem, it can't just happen, results in 30 days, not lasting results, at least. We live in a quick fix. Everything is instant gratification. And so when I can help people see well, what have you already been doing? What have you already done before? What worked? What didn't work? When I help them kind of look through that their mindset changes. And I usually ask them questions of, what's the best thing about not changing what you're doing right now? Well, maybe it's cheaper, or, I don't have to make any change. Okay. Well, what's the worst thing about not changing anything right now? And then we flip it. What's the worst thing about making this change? And they just start to they talk themselves into understanding what's really going on in their mind, their fears, what's holding them back. And then habits, again, it's one thing I help people do is just a 5-minute action. It's super simple. It's literally an action that takes you 5 minutes or less. So let's say people are my schedule's so busy, the only time I have to work out is first thing in the morning. But that means I have to get up an hour earlier, and that stinks. That's 4 a.m. I don't want to do that. So 5-minute action is putting their phone, their alarm, most people's phones are their alarms, on their workout clothes. And they set it out the night before. So it's away from their bed. They have to get up the next morning to turn off their alarm. And as they grab their phone, they've got their workout clothes in their hand. So it's something that just, it's all right, well, I might as well, I'm up, right? People want to drink more. Tell them put a glass of water by their bed, on their bathroom sink, next to the coffee maker. And before they do that action, they just drink, 4 ounces, 8 ounces of water. So we're just kind of getting those little wins. And it's not I have to chug, 70 ounces of water. No, it's just finding ways to naturally incorporate it. So I help people build those habits almost without realizing they're building it. It's when you're a parent and you're trying to help your kid learn to do something, it's you might hide their veggies for a while, or you might slowly introduce them. Training wheels, it's the training wheels on the bicycle. So that's the biggest thing, is their mindset of willingness or understanding what's holding them back. And half the time what they think is the issue is not, it's something else. And then it's their habits. I mean, I'm sure we could all come up with something that we don't want to do, and have to find ways of learning how to do it. And then, like you said, it's that lowest hanging fruit again. So much easier.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I agree with you completely about, that quick fix, going back to what you were saying about that. I mean, with
Right.
people with chronic pain, I have this, we have the same challenge is you've been in pain for 10, 15, 20 years sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get better in 2 weeks. It's
No.
just, it's unfortunately, it's not going to happen. But if you can feel like, oh, I can do this, and like take those little steps, and like you said, building those habits, you're really like helping people pin down like habit building and individualizing that for them. So,
Yeah. Well, and I love that you're like all about the path,
yeah.
because I tell people in my latest workshop, I was like, think about it as when we're coaching to get like, you're one of my clients, we're going on a road trip. You're the driver and I'm the passenger who has the old school map, right? So you know where your destination is, you know where you want to go. I have the map and I can see all the different routes to get you there. And you
Mhm.
got to tell me what you would like to do, right? So they're always in control, but I'm going to say, okay, well, if we go this route, it looks like there's a dead end, or, it looks like that might be a cliff that we're going to fall off if we go that route. So I help them see the most direct way there. And then when there's things like, flat tires or detours along the way, that's life, right? Something
Mhm.
inevitably. That's the other thing, is people want to hit that pause button. Women are like, oh, you know what? It's a crazy season at work. I just can't. There's never a perfect time. That's my secret. Never going to be a perfect time. So with me guiding you along, I'm going to help you when I see you getting a little far off. Like I have a client who just started and she has company in town. And I've been like, hello, because they get to talk to me Monday through Saturday through an app. And I haven't heard from her. So
Oh.
I give them their space. And then I'm like, it's been a week and a half. How's it going? She got off track. She almost like stepped out of the car, And so she's like, okay, I do need to get back on track. And so I have those systems in place because that's life. We get distracted by good things, by not so great things, and we need that guide. And then you'll leave with it. You get to your destination, you have a toolkit,
Mhm.
So
Mhm. Yeah, and
it's
that's so key, is that coaching basically what you're doing and just
right.
being there for someone. I love that you have an app and you're basically available to somebody if they're like, oh my gosh, this cupcake is staring me down. Like, what do I do? I would be that client. I would be texting you and being like, what do I do about this cupcake?
And I got some 5-minute actions for you.
Yes. Um, so
Oh,
like I said, as when with the clients that I see, nutrition is definitely a big factor with them. A lot of them though, so some of the most common roadblocks, kind of going off of your analogy, some of the most common roadblocks that I've heard from clients are things like, they've tried things before and they haven't had success, usually like fad diet type stuff. And I'd love to pick your brain about like fad diet stuff, but we can get to that in a second. And then, they're like, my doctor told me not to have any more sugar. Do I like just not ever have any more sugar?
right.
Can I replace that with something? What do I do with that? And then the third one is the challenge of incorporating maybe their special diet into their family's needs as well, and
Yeah,
their family's wants, especially if they have kids and their kids won't eat this, this, and this. So they're
right,
making 2 or 3 meals for one meal.
right.
So we can kind of go back and tackle that. But so what kind of things do you do or suggest for people with those issues?
Whew. Okay, so let's start with the fad diets. Because I give like I say nutrition plan because the word diet is so misconstrued anymore, but everyone eats a diet, like food, variety, whatever they choose. The thing with fad diets is they're a fad for a reason, right?
Mhm.
But even like ketogenic, paleo, I would say I did the paleo diet for very strict for like a year because I needed to reduce that inflammation in my body because my gut was so sensitive. I had a big enough why that I could stick with it. And then when I kind of broke out of it, I still had my guidelines, but it was easiest to say, oh, I just eat paleo. Because
Mhm.
then people kind of understood the guidelines, maybe.
Right.
But a lot of people, that's when I ask them, like, what have you done before? What worked? What didn't work? Because a lot of people need to just be aware of what they've even tried, right? I never encourage a fad diet. You know, if someone's like, I want to be ketogenic, then I definitely want to make sure they understand what being truly ketogenic looks like. And if it's not something they're ready, willing, and able to do on a scale of out of 10 and 9 out of 10, I do not. I'm like, nope. But if they're like, yes, I've tried it before, I have really good success with this, and with your help, I can stick to that 9 out of 10. Okay, let's give it a try. So, and on the other hand, if they're like, I'll eat my cupcakes, I want to eat everything, I don't want you putting restrictions on anything. Okay, well then that's when the replace thing comes into play. So yes, there are specific like styles of eating, whether it's like Mediterranean or vegetarian, vegan, but I want people to understand what it entails. And it has to be something that's a lifestyle. You know, it can't be something that they're going to jump into and jump out. Oh, I'm going on vacation, so now I'm just going to like have a free for all. That does not work for a ketogenic. It doesn't work for a lot of different lifestyles. But if you can find a way that works, especially for the people who are like, my family doesn't support this, if you can find a style that you can get your whole family on board with, that's where you're going to have the most success. And again, none of this is overnight. I mean, these are things where I have a client who's past menopause, or she's entering into menopause. And so she knows like my body doesn't respond to some of the things that I used to not struggle with, but she's like, I still don't want to give up carbs, and I don't want to give up. She's struggling with giving up that diet soda, you know, some of those things. So we're finding swaps, right? And that's the next thing you'd mentioned is because I've been doing this for a decade, I have so many resources, and resources that have discounts to get these swaps. So like we use, my husband loves pasta. I don't do gluten very often. And so I use like a chickpea pasta called Vanza. It's the one that he'll eat that tastes and texture is pretty like on point. So that's something we had to kind of try a few things. That's a simple swap. We both love it. And then we just get, either I make my own spaghetti sauce because I love to cook, or we get like Rouse or another brand from Thrive Market that again does not have added sugars. So it doesn't mean that you can't necessarily get your whole family on board. It's just being aware of what's out there. When I started this a decade ago, like none of this stuff was in the grocery stores, and if it was like 2 to 3 times the price. And or I'd be all weekend cooking, like making my own ketchup and my own barbecue sauce. And it's not, you don't have to do that now. There are so many ways, and yeah, maybe it's $1 more, but it's worth it. So that kind of goes over those two, is like, I need to make sure they're ready, willing, and able. And you know, just because Sally is doing keto does not mean that you need to go keto, right? Like you need to know your body, you need to know yourself and what you're ready, willing, and able to do. And then, like I said, my clients are like, they have more resources than they know what to do with. And so simple swaps, looking at the back of a label. Do you know all the ingredients? Is sugar in the first ingredient? You know, you can just, without even working with a coach, you can go to the grocery store and spend like, okay, I'm going to tackle the international aisles this weekend. And I'm going to just like, if I go for these normally, like look at the other brands. Is there one that says it's organic? Is there one that says it's, you know, non-GMO? And just look at the back and see what's in it. It doesn't have to be like everything is swapped out at once, you know?
Yep. Yeah. And the sugars, like you were saying, looking at the back of the label and just looking at added sugars and things like that. Just a few years ago, I started really paying attention to what I'm eating and putting in my body. And holy cow, like sugar is everywhere, and things that you would not think sugar is. It's crazy.
So the average RDA, like recommended daily allowance for added sugars, not like fruit sugar,
sure,
30 grams. Do you know how much the average American includes?
Probably way more than that.
90. 3 times the recommended daily allowance. So just by making these small swaps and like picking one area a week to just like, okay, this week we go to the grocery store. Now we have a good pasta sauce. Now I'm going to look for a better bread, or I'm going to look for better tortillas, or I'm going to look for better yogurt, like whatever that may be, you're going to start to just within a few months, like have a whole new kitchen. And you're going to be reducing your sugar intake, and added sugars is what causes insulin spikes, which is what messes with our hormones, and it messes with our guts and our brain. All of them are interconnected. So, you know, I had a client who had really massive food intolerances, and she was seeing a doctor as well, like just getting some of those tests done that I don't do. I'm not a doctor, but we were working on just eliminating things. And her family, she's a grown adult and was living with her parents for the time being. And she was like, they don't eat like this. So she had to create a shelf, whether you make a shelf that's like your off limits shelf, if you got kids and they've got things that you're like, oh, I love goldfish crackers, but I know I shouldn't have them. Right. So whether you make it an off limits, or like that might tempt me to be like, cause I'm rebellious sometimes, like, oh, I'm going to have that. So maybe you make the, like, you know, the Jenni only shelf, like this is just for me. This is for pan only. Then it's kind of that like privilege. And you might have to do that like in the refrigerator too. But again, it's just reframing how you look at it. And then when my clients do have those, like, okay, if I'm going to eat this way, how do I get my family on board? I'm going to lead you to easier recipes or easier meals that, you know, maybe you put your veggies on the side if your kids are picky, like you learn. So it's ideally your kids are eating what you're eating. Like that's the ultimate goal. And it comes to like healthy foods. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, definitely. With all that, what do you feel like are some of the more common food or nutrition mistakes that you see your clients making? I know we've talked about like habit and mindset and all that, but when it comes down to the actual nutrition piece, what do you feel like people are like, oh, that's healthy, but it's not actually healthy, or that's not healthy, but it's actually really good for you, kind of thing?
Right. Well, one of the things is women in general just undereat protein. Whether it's an aversion to meat or just knowing good quality sources of protein, or I can't tell you how long I thought like peanut butter was pure protein. It's fat, right? Like when I was younger and I'm like, I'm having peanut butter, it's a protein. And I'm like, it's got a little bit, but it's not a protein. Protein is what helps our brain know it's full. So when a lot of times people come to me with like, I've got all these cravings, one of the first things I switch is helping them identify protein sources that are good quality that they'll eat, and helping them get more protein first, because then they feel fuller faster. And so all of a sudden it's like those other things go away. So they're not only under eating calories, but they're not getting the right source of those calories. You know, healthy fats, our hormones are made of fat. And so we need good sources of healthy fat. I grew up in the 90s where it was like the non-fat era, right? So that'd be one of the things that I see them making is fat-free diet, low calorie, like not actually understanding the nutrition or lack of nutrition in something. One of my favorite, he has his own podcast. His name is Sean Stevenson, and he has a quote that he says, chronic nutrient deficiency leads to chronic overeating. So when we get that, like, think of like that bag of chips that you get to the bottom of and you're like, how did that just happen? Right. Oops. Or like a sleeve of Oreos, never done that before, right? It's because those foods have no nutrient value. And so your brain is craving nutrients. And so when you have a bite of chips, if you especially don't have protein, healthy fat, you know, fruits and veggies already in your system, what happens is that perfect bite of fat and sugar and carbohydrates just melts in your mouth. And that just tells your brain more, more, more. And so that's why it's so easy to overeat those things. And that's one of the common mistakes that I see people do is they'll start with that first, I'm home late and I'm hungry. I'm going to start eating these chips before my dinner's made. I'm going to snack on this. And so even if it's like, chips and hummus, right? They're going to probably eat more of the chip than the hummus part, right? And then all of a sudden dinner's made. And now they're eating even more. They've already eaten a lot of calories, if you will, a lot of empty calories. Hummus is for you, but you get what I'm saying.
Mhm.
So it's that just a shifting. Okay, I'm going to eat these things first. And then if I want some chips afterwards, cool, because you probably aren't going to be able to stomach that many more because you're full. So it's learning that. And then we talked about it, going with a trend diet. So your best friend does it, so you do it. Or because you see all these celebrities endorsing it. So it's like, I want to do that. Oh, quick fix. I'm going to do, I mean, the number of ads I see for certain celebrity, find out their secret trick that they've done to lose all this weight. And it's usually some really ridiculous fad diet or not eating cleanse. It's like, get 200 calories a day and you can lose weight. And it's like, no.
Yeah, I know. It's interesting how things have shifted in terms of like the calorie restriction era of like the 2000s and 90s almost. And then also like you were talking about like fats, like demonizing fats in the 90s and 2000s. Like, and now
Yes.
it's like, well, actually, we made a mistake. Fats are maybe good for you and you might need them, like good fats, right?
Right.
Good
Yeah,
for.
I mean, I used to drink probably a gallon of non-fat milk like a week
Mhm.
by myself. Like,
Mhm.
loved it. There's no nutrient value in non-fat milk. It's just water essentially, right? With
Yep.
some fillers. It's a synthetic version of what you think you're getting. And so again, those chemicals are really messing with your hormones. They're messing with your neurotransmitters. So your brain's confused. There's actually been studies done that showed non-fat products lead to fertility challenges.
Mhm.
So it's a big deal. And unfortunately, us and our generation, we're seeing the side effects of growing up in that era of that, and just convenient foods, right? Convenience, convenience, convenience.
Right.
There, you can do health and convenience in one. It's just learning what that looks like. Even like going to a smoothie shop still have so many added sugars. So
Mhm.
being mindful, but my whole thing is like mindful eating as a way of life. So that's when I give people nutrition tips, it's just be mindful of what you're putting into your body. If you really don't like to cook, okay, I'm going to help you read a menu better somewhere so you know how to, order. And then, yeah, we're going to try and get you doing something from home. So baby steps.
Yeah, totally. So kind of on the same realm there, what is one myth that you would like to bust about nutrition and health? Something that everybody's like, this is how you eat healthy, but actually not really.
Stop counting calories. So many women will come to me and they're like, well, so how many calories is that? I'm like, I don't count calories. I mean, I could tell you. The problem is most nutrition labels are 25% inaccurate because it doesn't take into account things like, okay, it's all scientific here. Thermogenesis is your body's, when you're eating different foods, fats, proteins, carbs, it actually burns calories while you're chewing those foods. That's not accounted for. What else is not accounted for is like the oils and how you're prepping the food, if you're steaming them versus frying them. It doesn't take into account like 100 calories of spinach is not 100 calories of cookies, right? So when I was the fitness coach and they would do like these fitness challenges, they always required turning in a food log. And the food log would be like through an app where they would scan barcodes and stuff. And I laughed because they're like, oh, I had, like half of a Michelob Light. And I was like, well, first of all, no one has half of a Michelob Light. Second of all, you're getting your carbs from your beer and your wine, which is not like, I never tell people to give that stuff up. But if that's where all of your calories are coming from, are overly highly processed foods with, all these hidden ingredients, you're missing the point of what's actually changing your body from the inside out. So it's, again, maybe you're going to get to that quick result, but it's not sustainable because you're doing it legitimately for this, 60-day challenge. And then you're going to go, you haven't learned the habits.
Yeah.
So yeah, the only time people would really count calories is if they are like training for something. So like whether it's a weightlifting competition or bodybuilding competition, or they're an elite athlete. I do not count calories. I will look at macros, and I teach people like hand portions. So I help people still learn how to portion out their food to get more of the nutrients they need. And food is looked at on a continuum, but I never say, well, you have, this many grams of protein each day, and you have this many calories. That's included, but I just and tell them, like, you're not even going to have to worry about that. And the number of women that thank me, they're like, oh, thank goodness. Because the number one thing they said that didn't work was counting calories. It's like,
yeah, I mean,
it didn't work.
yeah, totally. I agree with you completely. I mean, the counting calories is just such a small sliver of the puzzle.
Right.
Like I'm saying, although I did not know that like nutrition labels are basically are inaccurate, and
Yeah.
that completely makes sense. It's like everything that you eat, your body processes it differently, and then the energy that it takes to actually eat it is also different too.
Right. And just our body tolerance. I mean, it's a guide, right? So if you go out to eat and it's like 1,000 calories, yeah, it's probably got close to 1,000 calories. So what you're looking at there then is, do I want half of my day's calories right now? Is this, and then also where are those calories coming from? If it's avocado and like, higher fatty foods, okay, cool. But again, and then do I need to eat all of this? That's what I tell everybody too, is like, I don't discourage ever eating out or doing these things. It's just looking at that's
the portion.
Yeah. That part of the picture of like, do you really want that to be half of your day's food? Yeah. Okay. How can maybe you don't ask for the rice. Maybe you ask for like more steamed veggies or, things like that. So
Yep.
Counting calories.
So you kind of touched on this a little bit already with nutrition and hormones specifically. And you had a client that was just going through menopause and her whole body was changing. Funny thing was, I actually just was at a conference, a pain science conference a few weeks ago, and I literally had 4 colleagues tell me they were just starting menopause and their entire bodies were changing, and they had food sensitivities that started coming up, and they're like, I've never had food sensitivities before, and their gut was all a mess.
Right.
Like, and the biggest thing is they're physical therapists. They're knowledgeable. They're in the healthcare system, and they're like, we have no resources. We don't know what to do. There's nothing in the literature about how to help ourselves, which is, I mean, sad, but not surprising, unfortunately, right?
Yeah. I know it's not.
But with that, how can you elaborate on how like nutrition and hormones are connected? And especially, you're working with women and perimenopausal, postmenopausal women, like how that all connects and flows?
Yeah. So your hormones are made in your gut. And when I think even like just your nod, like, okay, yes, like people will tell me, well, I don't have food intolerances, so it doesn't matter what I eat. And it does, especially when your hormone levels start changing because of age and natural things like perimenopause and menopause. We have to really start looking at, so your gut, Queen Cortisol, I call her, like she's queen, right? She controls blood sugar levels. And if we have too much added sugar, like most people do, then insulin spikes. And either you want to be insulin sensitive to where your body understands how to process it and usually store insulin as in your muscles for energy, right? Or go straight to your brain. But when we have too much sugar and that insulin spikes, we become insulin resistant, which means our body is resistant to processing that blood sugar, which means we store it. You see more belly fat, especially. You're going to see thyroid issues. You're going to see PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. You're going to see all of those hormonal things, hot flashes. That's when pretty much our hormones are not communicating anymore. That line of communication is like severed, or it's all blocked up. There's roadblocks along the way. And so ideally we want to get rid of that insulin resistance. And so taking out sugar, all those hidden sugars is a big thing. So your gut, when all these outside environmental cues, as well as the food we put into it, your gut says friend, foe, friend, foe. It's like distinguishing which is which. And if it sees too many foes, it spikes inflammation in the body. And so when you're like, man, I'm constantly descended, or I'm like feeling bloated all the time, this never happened. It's because you're probably eating something that has synthetic, right, ingredients, or you have something that has excessive chemicals in it, like sunscreen, all of those things that we put on our skin. It gets into our system in less than 30 seconds. 30 seconds. So when we talk about like endocrine disrupting chemicals, I tell everybody it matters just as much what you put on your body as what you put in your body, because your gut has the largest contact to the outside world. So just looking at changing up some of those things. At 37, I started to understand that I was already perimenopausal, and my mom had PCOS, my grandma, like there is a history of it. And because I had been on the pill for so long, it was mimicking regular cycles. And when I finally got off, I realized, oh no, like I'm not having regular. And I had all the mood swings and stuff, like a little bit more than you would on a normal cycle, but it became very evident that I'd been blocking it from being on medicine. And now I was very aware. So I had to make some major shifts too. I was already eating healthy. I was already helping people with nutrition, but I was like, okay, I need to reevaluate this. And that's when I also changed my macronutrient levels of eating, more hormone friendly foods. And a lot of times people are eating the timing of when they eat certain foods and how much of certain foods. Unfortunately, it's a phase of life. And so, it might be a season where you see less carbohydrates or just different types of carbohydrates, and you eat them at different times in the day, so that your blood sugar levels are not spiking and they're more regulated. I haven't had hot flashes in, my gosh, at least a year now. And it's a relief, man. I mean, I would be sitting and just drenched in sweat. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, but my body is clearly unhappy with me. It makes a big difference. So, and I still love, a glass of wine every once in a while. And I still love, those things, but I've learned if I want to feel better, I just have to make some changes. So.
Right. Going back to that kind of like 80-20 rule.
Yeah. And, I address all of this in depth in the online course, and people will get all these resources and tools and like next steps of where to go. But if people are experiencing perimenopause and menopause, you need my course. You need that.
Awesome. So when people start on the path with getting their nutrition dialed in, what do you see? Like, what are some of the changes that they get? Let's say, we talked about the perimenopausal women already, but just like, even in your 20s, if you're having questions, or later on in life, what kind of life changes are people going through?
Yeah, well, so I have like clients in their 20s all the way up to their 60s. So it's really fun to see women in all stages. But so I have one of my clients who's like in her mid 20s. She had a bunch of friends come into town, and she goes, Jenni, you'll never believe it. My friends wanted to go out late, and I told them, no, that's too late to eat. That's not going to help our sleep. And when we sleep bad, we make bad food choices. She was like telling them, she was advocating for herself, and she never advocated for herself. And she was also teaching them like, well, I need to have more protein with this meal. So we need to figure out how to get more protein with this meal so that I'm fuller and I don't eat so much. And so just like hearing people learn to advocate for themselves at all stages of life, learning how to communicate with their significant others on what they need and why it's important to them. Like I've seen that with every single client. They have to learn how to communicate. And so we have those conversations and we practice like, okay, what could you say in this situation so that you aren't left either overeating, undereating, eating really late, like whatever, keeping them away from their goals. And then I love seeing, and I know you'll love this one. I had a client who reduced the inflammation, because chronic pain a lot of time comes from inflammation in our bodies. 100%. And so when I had a client and she went through a program with me and she goes, Jenni, I can run again. She's like in her early 30s. She's like, I haven't been able to run for 3 years because the pain in my knees was so bad. And she's like, I ran 3 miles. It was the best feeling ever. Like, that's the biggest win for me. I mean, if they want to lose weight and stuff, like, that's great. And she was not an overweight person, but it was, sometimes we can, like, that can be disguised too as like, well, I'm not overweight. Well, if you're in pain, as you know, it's probably not just habits, but inflammation in our body. And so when you take care of your gut and you reduce that inflammation, like, the smiles you cannot take away, like the pure joy of being able to do something you love again, those are like the best things they're seeing. They're learning how to not have, the cravings aren't as strong. They know how to, like I said, that toolkit of, you know, normally I would hit the alarm and not get up to work out, but I know I've got a workout buddy at the gym waiting for me, so I'm going to be there. Or, you know, they know their brands and now they're like finding recipes on their own. Or even I had a gal who was 45 and never cooked by herself, like never cooked for herself. She always had someone cooking for her. And so she was like, I'm cooking meals for me and my son and I'm enjoying it. She's like, not a lot, but a little, you know. She's like, but she's like learning how to eat within the parameters that help her to feel better. And she's learning how to be self-sufficient. And I think, you know, I tell my clients, your goal is to be able to fire me in 3 months or 6 months or a year, whatever those, you know, path you take, because you don't need me anymore. You have become the teacher, essentially. So,
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like our philosophies are basically just like on the same path. It's fantastic. Like, it's always about function. Like, even if you can improve your function, if you can enjoy life just a little bit more and be the person that you want to be, that's a success right there.
Well, I had mentioned I'm like an all or nothing. I used to be really big all or nothing. My best friend was like, you work hard and play hard. Well, so my mom's coming into town from Oregon. And so I live in North Carolina. And so we're going to go to Savannah, which Southern food, like next week, I'm like, okay, how am I going to navigate this so I can stay on track for my goals? We're working on through some fertility challenges. And so I do have a very specific nutrition plan for myself. But I also have learned that 80-20, where are my like kind of give and takes? And then where are my non-negotiables? And so using the strategies I give with my clients, I use them on myself. My husband helps me with that. He's my like best support. And I know those balances. So I'm not because I used to vacation all or nothing. Like, all right, I'm going all in. I'm going to have all the Southern food. I'm going to feel miserable. And then when I get back, I'll get back on track. And now no, I can learn how to apply these practices and skills and still enjoy without overdoing it. And so that's what I help people do. It's the best.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I want to get into I want to talk a little bit about your coaching program and the course that you have on, because you've talked about it a little bit and it sounds fantastic. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah. So I have 2 coaching programs. One is a 3-month track and one is both of them include the app, to like hundreds of resources, and being able to talk to me Monday through Saturday on that app. So it's texting. They can do a food journal, which again is not calories, but it's more of like, here's what I ate. I felt full and satisfied, or I felt hurried, or, you know, I knew I should eat, but I wasn't really hungry. You know, it's like helping me understand what's going on.
It helps them kind of be mindful too.
Yeah.
Like, know about it. That's fantastic.
So then they learn, okay, when they leave, they're like, okay, now I know, like maybe I wasn't feeling hungry because, you know, when like a baby's overtired, they don't want to sleep. It's the same thing. If you're skipping meals, not intentionally, like intermittent fasting, then your body is going to go, oh, I'm not hungry. When the second you eat food, no, I was hungry. Right. So you get all of those resources. And then the 3-month plan, you kind of get like a 30-minute initial, like, let's get on track Zoom call and a 30-minute exit strategy. So it's more for people who are a little more independent. Maybe they feel like they have already some tools, but they want that guidance in the season of life. And then the 6-month plan, it's a 1-hour coaching, like Zoom call a month on top of all those other things. And then they have the option to add on. My husband is a personal trainer, so he writes workouts. So he will customize workouts for them and they can add that on. And it's just kind of like the whole meal deal. So again, what I love is I coach people like through more of hand portions with their food and then all of the habits. And so I have a new client onboarding and she's like, I need help with sleep. I know it's my weakest area. Like she actually has really good nutrition habits. We're going to fine tune those and we're going to work on sleep the most. So I almost say I'm like a health coach as on top of just being a nutrition coach. But for some people, the best entry point would be a workshop. Or an online course. And so I am just launching those. And the first one is going to be the Eating for Happy Hormones, because the more I talk to women, the more every woman needs this. I don't care if you're 20, because so many women with all of the practices that I go over in the course, and it's such an easy like financial entry point too, that even in your 20s, you may not see direct impact. Most women do, but you may not see direct impact until you're in your 30s. But I don't want people to get to their 30s and then go, oh man, I wish I would have, It's like, because you can't, I mean, there are things you can improve upon, but you can't get back those years of building up, damage in your body. They're saying now that Alzheimer's is like type 3 diabetes. And so if I can help women through their learn about their hormones and sugar and all of those, how to balance it out and just have a better mindset around that and mindfulness around it, I know I'm doing my part in helping them, like so many people, age better, feel better. I want women to feel better,
Yep.
Yeah.
Should.
Yeah, we should.
So what is one thing, if you could give just one piece of advice to somebody who's struggling with nutrition, general health, just not feeling well and not feeling themselves, what is one piece of advice you would give them?
It's more of like, make a list and see what's holding you back, right? Like see what's holding you back. So maybe it is like they have this 500,000 feet view of like, okay, I've got to do it all or I'm not doing anything. So just start making a list of like, whether it's finances, whether it's like, I don't even know what my swaps would be. I don't, and once you kind of see what's holding you back, then you kind of see, well, where's my entry point? Well, okay, I don't have the time to go to the gym, but maybe I can walk. Right. And that's honestly, women say they can't exercise, just go for a walk. It's like the best. But yeah, I think it's awareness, because until we're aware of what actually is really going on, the whole picture, then we're more likely to just grab at things in the air and just guess and check. And we don't want to do that, because you're going to end up a decade later going, how did I end up here? Right. But if you can just make a list of see what's holding you back and pick that lowest hanging fruit and start there, and just that one piece, you're more likely than not going to be willing to keep going. So I know it's kind of general and vague, but I just think so many women are very unaware of what the big picture is. So
I agree with you completely. And it's something that I find with my clients as well. We are on autopilot for so much of our day, and it's a good thing and a bad thing, right? But like you said, mindful eating is a big deal, because we're mostly just shoveling crap in our faces most of the day, just trying to get through the day. So when you take a step back and look at everything, it can be so overwhelming. Like I get this with my clients too. It's like, you want me to tackle my pain? That is so overwhelming. That's such a huge hurdle. But breaking it down by, okay, where is your entry point? I really like that.
Yeah. What is the ultimate goal? So I always tell my clients, like, think of it as a dial. Like, what's a 10? Like, I'm rocking it today. And what's a 1? I'm surviving. So if it's like nutrition, you're like, my 10 would be, ideally, I can prep all my meals and I'm ready to go. And a 1 is like, I know my go-to items on the drive-through, and I know they're better than other set items. at least you have your entry points. And so, you know, tackling the simplest thing not only gives you that like quick endorphin hit of like, woo, I got some dopamine, I'm like ready to go because I was successful. Yeah. It also then helps you to feel like I can do this. There is something I can do that's successful. We're hard on ourselves as women. I mean, so stinking hard on ourselves. We're servants, most of us, taking care of others. And when we can step back and just find a small win, that's when you can start to see some changes, you know, and then hire a coach. Yeah. I know I'm biased, but I mean, we've hired coaches for other things. You know, people go to a gym and go to classes, right? They come to a pain specialist because they know they need that. And so it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. You're like,
I agree.
Know your expertise. So
yes, I agree completely. Yes. Hire a coach. I can get on board with that one for sure.
Yes, you can.
All right, Jenni, where can people find you? Are you on social media, email? Where can they find out more about your courses, all that fun stuff?
Absolutely. So they can go find me on social media at life.simply.balance. So Life Simply Balanced, Jenni Sills. And then my website is jennisills.com. It is, you'll have to check the show notes because my name, you got to spell it with an I. My mom was, you know, great with that. I actually love it, but when you're telling someone, it's always Jenni with a Y. So yeah, jennisills.com. There'll be online courses there. You can click that. You can learn more about coaching and then get links to contact me. So my website is the best way to go. So
perfect. Yeah. Well, Jenni, it was a great talking with you today. I learned a lot. I learned little bits and pieces that I was like, oh man, I didn't even know those things. So hopefully, everybody listening has some really good take-home messages that they can start implementing right away, start making a list, checking it twice, all that fun stuff. And check out Jenni if you're having any nutrition questions. And yeah, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thank you so much. I do a newsletter and I'll be writing about this experience, and I'm going to be tagging you because I know people who have chronic pain. So I'll send them your way.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. For sure. Like I said, nutrition is down here on my knowledge level. So I'll be sending people your way too.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pam.
No problem. Have a great one.
You too.